Talking about drama.
It's all the signs of someone that is about the ego. To parade your new girlfriend in thumbnails in bed in this way.
Okay, but look, I mean, so this, I want to make a separate video talking about this idea of selfishness and the ego and stuff. All right, I'm willing to own it. Like, I'm showing a video and a photo of me being happy with my girlfriend. Does that really make me such a piece of shit? Am I such a terrible person that I don't just share what we've mentioned, the book reviews and the political decisions? I also share part of my life. Like, I'm really happy. I'm in this wonderful new relationship with my girlfriend. That I show me and my girlfriend being happy together. And I talk about what a great time we're having. Does that really make me such a terrible person?
Heinous.
Like, compared to what anybody else is doing on vegan YouTube. I don't mind. I say, yeah, okay, you can call that ego. I have one video of me playing with my daughter, right? So is that ego? Like, I'm showing you what a great parent I am. I'm showing you me playing with my daughter with like little, colored bricks and stuff. What a piece of shit. Who would put that on YouTube? What a terrible person you are for sharing a video of you playing with your daughter. And when you get into the other stuff in my life, I'm very critical. I'm willing to talk about it. Okay, doing humanitarian work. When I did humanitarian, where you're handing out sacks of rice to starving people, I think for a lot of people that is an ego trip. I think it's worth talking about it. No matter what. Well, okay, is this an ego trip? You feel morally superior to others because you've done this humanitarian work. Is there, like people say, white guilt? Is there a guilt trip involved? Whether it's, Laos and Cambodia or within Canada, First Nations, Cree and Ojibwe and Dene, trying to help those people. When people write to me, as Norvegan did recently, insulting me and claiming that I'm self-interested when I do these ostensibly good things, I'm willing to write back and say, you're right. I'm selfish. I've said it myself in the video, in the manifesto video. Yeah. I'm more ambitious than this. I'm more selfish than this. I want more. I'm not happy with what's going on in veganism. I want it to be bigger and better and more political and more effective and have real outcomes. I want it to be respected and respectable. I want us to have organizations like Mothers Against Drunk Driving that get quoted in the press and that aren't regarded as a joke. Yeah, I want more. And there's an element of that which is my ego and is my selfishness. I think to found a big successful organization like PETA, I think it takes some ego. I think Gary Yourofsky has a lot of ego, and fine. I don't criticize him for that. Sure. There is a role of ego in this. There is literally a role of ego and selfishness in handing out food to starving people in a refugee camp. There's a role of ego in standing up and saying, hey, there's no way I can study Cambodian. There's no way I can study Pali. There's no way I can have a teacher. I'll teach myself. I'm going to buy that airplane ticket. I'm going to go live on the Mekong River. I'm going to apply for humanitarian work. Oh, I can't get ahead in First Nations language. I'm going to get the books out of the library and start studying creative Ojibwe myself. Yes, there's a role of ego in all of those things. Mm-hmm. And I'm willing to criticize it and talk about it openly. And I'm willing to talk about the role of selfishness even in humanitarian work. I think that's actually a really deep topic. I'm willing to talk about the role of selfishness in vegan leadership. Sure. So, come at me, Joe. Yeah. I'm not afraid of any of this stuff.
Yeah, and he was basing this on the thumbnail. He didn't actually watch the video. So he's saying that Isel is parading me based off of this thumbnail. It's just me being in the thumbnail.
Yeah.
It's really weird.
I'm sure they're having a great time. She seems like a lovely girl.
Thanks, Joe.
I love, he always imagines that one, he can be the victim, and two, he can be the nice guy by just throwing in this kind of bullshit. Yeah. Throwing in, she seems like a lovely girl doesn't make you a nice guy, Joe. What do you think? She's in love with me. You call me a psychopath publicly. You think this makes it okay to say you're sure she's a lovely girl?
You don't need to save me.
Ladies and gentlemen, Joe Best.
Talking about drama.
As a rule, the only thing that can defeat a psychopath is a bigger psychopath.
I've mentioned in the past that you cannot be name withheld. And I've said this because when I got interested in this subject last year, I read this book called Defense of the Psychopath. And in it said that the only thing that can beat a psychopath is a bigger psychopath. And this reminded me of when I was in my youth, that there was these rough kids, like in the gangs I was in, that you couldn't beat.
So you're a bigger psychopath than Durianrider, according to Joe Best.
Than the rough, tough kids in the streets of London. in the gangs in London that he was a member of, right? Yeah. Before his brilliant career as an international financier that keeps getting alluded to. Although his only university degree is in architecture, he went from being in violent street gangs in London with rough kids to studying architecture at university to being an international financier in the international banking system. What a career this guy's had. And people ask me for screenshots. They ask me to prove that my passport is real. When I show my passport screen, nothing about this story is hard to believe, huh? Nothing about his claim. So based on his experience with street gangs in London, he thinks I'm a psychopath. That's actually the opening claim here.
Because they would go the extra mile. So even if you was stronger, even if you was faster, you know, they would always be willing to go the extra mile because that's what their life is. And it's the same with narcissists on YouTube and social media. They are...
So you're a narcissist too.
Because I'm willing to go the extra mile. What does that even mean?
I don't know. I think he views his interactions with you, like on screen it says cold and calculated, heartless. Right.
So a video of you and me having a spontaneous conversation in our bathrobes, recorded after midnight and recorded before his video went up, by the way. Yeah, it was delayed. We didn't upload for a couple of days. We hadn't seen his video. It wasn't a response to his video. That's cold and heartless, my behavior. But like, in what sense do I go the extra mile? Like, even in the case with Durianrider, like what? He
reached out to you just a week ago to send an apology email. Right? You didn't have any contact with him for months.
Yeah, right. I mean, you know, like, okay. Anyway, but going the extra mile, not necessarily a bad thing. But like, what my response to Durianrider, would you call it overkill? Like, I just said, okay, Durianrider, like, look, man, if you want to arrest me, that was his original claim, was that he had criminal charges against me. I said, let's meet at the police station. No problem. And I said, if you don't want to meet at the police station, we can meet at a coffee shop or we can meet at a boxing ring. Your choice. Let's meet. Fine. Let's resolve this. Going the extra mile. Therefore, I'm a sociopath. Therefore, I'm a psychopath. I don't know. Maybe I was lazy. Maybe I didn't go extra mile enough, right? Like, I mean, you could see it that way. I mean, I don't know. I don't think I went the whole 9 yards, to mix metaphors, you know? Anyway.
They are willing to open up troll accounts. They are willing to write messages to themselves. They are relentlessly attacking.
Okay, so just go, have I ever done that even once? They're willing to create troll accounts.
Maybe he's talking about Durianrider.
I know, but you can see by the graphic screen, this is part of an attack.
Yeah, so he's saying that you're worse than that.
But these are differences between me and Durianrider. They're not similarities. These are things Durianrider does that I have never done once. Yeah. I don't have any troll accounts. I've never done this kind of stuff at all. What in response to one of the comments below this video, do you remember there was a comment below his video? There was somebody saying that me and Durianrider are exactly the same. I was like, yeah. You know, like, we're exactly the same, except I do book reviews talking about vegan politics, and Durianrider does like personal slander, like based on people's sex lives. Like, there's a really subtle difference. But if you watch my book reviews talking about like Gary Francione or any of these other major figures in veganism, you know, my book review of Will Tuttle, even, you know what I mean, talking about Will Tuttle's book. Like, I think if you watch my book reviews, you'll pick out the subtle difference between me and Durianrider and our approaches to this, you know.
Attacking you, where you just want to defend yourself and go to bed and have a nice life. So they exhaust you.
So again, does this describe my relationship with Joe Best in any way? Was I attacking him when he just wanted to be left alone? What? Like, at what stage does that remotely, like, in terms of the last year and a half, because my story with him goes back 2 years and more at this point, like, he made these videos defaming me, where he was supporting Durianrider, and saying this stuff about the financial situation and the legal situation and the fundraiser and this kind of stuff, and also saying stuff about my private sex life, where he was alleging and presuming that I was sleeping with a bunch of teenage girls in Chiang Mai. He was saying all this stuff, and I reached out to him in a totally positive way and said, look, don't act like I'm a stranger. Here's why I was in Chiang Mai. He made a big deal about why was he in Chiang Mai and all this crap. And saying, if you want to talk to me on Skype, we can talk. If you want to talk by email, I reached out to him positively. And at that time, his response to that was to say that I was guilty of ambient abuse. whatever the fuck ambient abuse makes. And now he says I'm a psychopath. So I've never said anything as negative publicly on the internet or privately. I have never said anything as negative about Joe Best as he's still saying about me. So if he held himself to the same standard, he'd have to judge himself as a psychopath and a narcissist.
And every single person that has gone up against name withheld, has burnt out because he will continue. I'm not saying this is a positive attribute. I'm saying that normal people...
Who else has gone up against name withheld?
Not you, Joe. You were a coward. You didn't go up against them. Not when it mattered. Not when it mattered. When everyone was supposed to stand up and be counted, you sat down. Okay? So, I mean, Vegan Gains. Richard. Vegan Gains stood up against Durianrider. He didn't burn out.
You're right.
Because he's a man of principle. He's a man with some character. He's a man with some fortitude. Eccentric as hell. Suffers hallucinations and dementia by his own account. He has his own psychological problems, but he was a man of principle. Nobody was expecting him to do that. He was a big supporter of Durianriders, and Durianrider supported him up to that point. And Vegan Gains, just because it was the right thing to do, he stood up to be counted. And it wasn't when it was convenient for him. It wasn't when it was good for his channel. It wasn't when it was the popular thing to do. And you didn't do that, Joe. You were on the wrong side when it matters, and now you want to pretend that you're a martyr and a victim and a hero all at the same time because you're doing it when it doesn't matter. You're doing it a year and a half too late or something like that.
Yeah, now it's become fashionable.
Right.
So
now you're just going along with the crowd now, the same way you were just going along with the crowd before, right? I mean, same story.
Want resolution. They will be in conflict looking for resolution. And if you don't get it, you become exhausted and you go away.
if you want resolution, why did you make a video calling Isla a psychopath?
Right. But what if I want resolution? What if the same thing applies to me, Joe? What if you send me your shitty apology at a time when you have more than 4 videos up on your channel, still slandering me and defaming me, videos that have been picked up and recycled by Vegan Foot Soldier recently, videos that still have a negative impact on my life. And my response to you, which you never admit, I sent you a message back saying this stuff is still on your channel. You never deleted it. You never apologized. You never retracted. You never made another video talking about it or something from a new perspective. You still have this stuff up, bad-mouthing me, blackening my character. And again, a lot of it being psychological, these claims that I'm a terrible person in some deep psychological way, which is much, much worse. It's much worse defamation than me saying that Nina and Randa are not going to have an easy time going to auditions in LA. I mean, this kind of absurd contrast. Okay, well, what if you just said normal people want resolution, Joe? What if I wanted resolution with you? What if rather than your apology, which, is like the 4th time in a year you've declared that your channel is going to take on a new positive direction, what if I want a resolution? Why don't you hold yourself to the same standard?
Yeah, it sounds like 1 year ago when you reached out to him, you were trying to have resolution with him when he was making up claims that you had been sleeping with teenage girls in Chiang Mai.
Right.
He was asking why is he
was on
why
the
is he in
bandwagon
Chiang
with
Mai
that
at all?
Right.
You reached out to him and said, "Hey, I'm available. You can talk to me."
My classic line, what I say again and again to people is, don't act like it's hard to find me.
Yeah.
You can talk to me. Yeah. I would, but to be honest, I wouldn't even call that resolution. Like, it wasn't for me. It was really me trying to be helpful to him. Because, I know, if people don't have any other source of information, if all he's hearing are lies from these other crappy YouTubers, it's like, well, look, I can show you a legal document. That's real. I can show you banking documents. You know what I mean? I can just talk you through what the situation is. And most people who talk to me, if they just got on Skype and talked to me, including Klaus, right? Klaus from Plant-Based News. Mm-hmm. They didn't even want to see the documents. Just hearing my voice, hearing me talk through what the delays were and what happened. They were like, Klaus just apologized. He was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. I thought it was a scam." If they have no other source of information, you can't blame them. So I would just say that wasn't even me looking for a solution for myself. It was me offering to help someone who was in equal parts misled and misleading.
That's the situation. And Name Withheld even talks about this in an interview with Carb Doping.
Great. Who has been the most difficult troll you've dealt with socially/legally?
No one's taken that cake yet, because a lot of them, they get on there and they go hard, but then they fizzle out. And the long-term ones are pretty low intensity, so generally the higher the troll burns, the quicker they fade, or the more consistent they are, the lower intensity they burn at.
Fair enough. But who doesn't this apply to? Who is still burning along, trolling along, attacking along without any sign of abating, won't accept anybody's apology, wants to be recognised for everything that he's done, etc., etc.? Well, this fella. Now, this here is the bigger psychopath. This guy...
When have I done trolling? Honestly, in my whole YouTube career and all the comments, what would you characterize as trolling? I can think of one example where the title of the video was trolling. but not the actual video if you watch it. I can think of one, and I think now more than 600 videos, but well over 500 videos on my channel. So I don't know the number. But yes, I can remember one video where I would say the title really was trolling, but to characterize me in general as still trolling, at no point was I trolling Durianrider, if that's what you're talking about here. At no point have I ever trolled Joe Best in any of our interactions. I mean, it was completely, like, by definition, normally a troll is anonymous to start with. But by definition, trolling is based on lies and insincerity.
Yeah.
Normally for comedic effect, partly, but also to be insulting or to get a reaction from somebody. Never. Even someone like Vegan Ava. I wasn't trolling Vegan Ava. I mean, it's kind of hilarious, my videos with her. But, like, so you remember the most recent one with Vegan Ava. Vegan Ava claimed that my email to another YouTuber was threatening. And there's no trolling. It's a 100% serious video. I show exactly what the email says, and I ask, in what way is this threatening? Like, why is this being said? I've never played the role of a troll, neither in relation to any of those specific people, nor in relation to the vegan movement in general. And even something like, you want to talk about like the diet advice from Freeland Durianrider, which is not my strong suit. It should have been someone like Vegan Gains who took them on in terms of their crappy diet advice. Somebody who really does diet and nutrition. But none of that is trolling. When I said, no, you can't eat unlimited carbs and not gain weight, I'm not trolling. Like, so this characterization of me, I don't know, what is it? A mix of insincere and insane.
Now this here is the bigger psychopath. This guy here, he's the one that's beaten Name Withheld. He's got him on the run, and he
just claimed I'm the biggest psychopath on vegan YouTube. I got competition. Not just Durianrider, man.
In my opinion, he ensnared him into a trap. He baited him into a trap and used that to destroy him. During that period, I was a supporter of Name Withheld. And I still stand by that from the point of view that I felt he was baited. I still think he's wrong. I still think he needs to go from this community, or just at least leave it alone. I think he's caused so much harm and destruction. None of that I take back. But it is very clear.
So what did I do to bait Durianrider?
Just because you made videos talking about his terrible diet advice, apparently.
Well,
so that is baiting him on.
And the actual,
of course, he had to make videos, or he had to make comments, with death threats. Obviously, that is the most logical reaction to those videos. Yeah. Okay. So you were totally baiting him on to. Yeah.
Well, okay. Conversely, of course, would anyone even doubt that Durianrider was baiting me? Like when Durianrider stated that I was on steroids. He said that repeatedly on his blog. He said that I was on steroids and giving weight loss advice on the basis of being on steroids. Is that baiting or not? Is that trolling or not? Those were his first public statements about me. His first, written statements on the internet. His first response to me on YouTube, the original controversy was about Crohn's disease. I say this again and again. So I made videos really stating, ultimately, boil down the long videos, Durianrider claims he cured Crohn's disease. I say he didn't. I think that's...
Crohn's is an incurable disease.
Crohn's disease...
Veganism will not cure Crohn's disease.
Crohn's disease is
perfectly valid criticism.
Crohn's disease is a very serious, incurable disease. And you could prove that Durianrider was lying simply by contrasting a sound clip from an interview he gave to Rich Roll to what he'd said on his own YouTube channel, more recently and less recently, but before and after. So there were inconsistencies within Durianrider's story that already made it impossible to believe that he actually had Crohn's disease and that he could prove he cured Crohn's disease. But also, I mean, hey, it would be a miracle of modern science if someone discovered the cure to Crohn's disease on YouTube. This would be written up in scientific and medical journals, okay? This would be a big deal, right? So if you're claiming that is baiting Durianrider, is that baiting someone? Is that pulling someone to controversy? No.
No, it's an invitation for him to say, you're right. I shouldn't say these things online. I shouldn't say that I cured Crohn's disease. It's not factual. It's not something that I should be promising to people. People with Crohn's disease are desperate for cures.
Yes.
And you can't tell them that eating a raw fruit diet is going to cure their Crohn's disease. It's just not
And
right. It's immoral. It's wrong.
And it impacts people's lives negatively. A lot of his advice when he tells people to drop out of college, you think it doesn't impact people's lives? You know, he gives a lot of bad advice that's worth criticizing, worth responding to about the permanent vacation lifestyle and everything else. But I got, I think just 3 or 4 emails from people with Crohn's disease. And I got one guy writing to me who was a biological sciences major. I forget his title. I forget if he was technically, I don't think he was a medical doctor, but he was in biological sciences. And the 3 or 4 people who had Crohn's disease, they talked about exactly that. Their sense of desperation and of wanting to try anything to cure this disease, and the negative impact this had on their lives, you know. And their exasperation. But I remember one person said, yeah, you know, eating more bananas kind of helps a little bit. But, like it's just having more fiber, more loose fiber passing through your system. But to misrepresent this as a cure is nonsense. And another person wrote to me, because I did look into the scientific literature of this, saying eating bananas doesn't help at all. It's a complete lie.
Yeah.
Anyway, the scientific literature indicates that it actually helps some people, not others, to eat a lot of loose fiber. But this is not a cure. This is not remotely a cure, you know. But I did actually get, again, maybe 3 or 4 people who wrote long personal emails to me talking about this issue and the impact on their lives. So it is an issue that has a face. It is an issue that has victims or has real impact on individual people's lives. And the biological sciences student, I mean, he was writing to me with the technical details proving that Durianrider must be lying. Because like Durianrider described having the test that proved he did have Crohn's disease and then having a test later that proved he was cured. So like he claimed that he'd had one test positive and then later had one test negative, right? Like as if it's a blood test. And this guy was writing to me saying, look, that's not how the test works. What he's describing is not the way the testing procedure goes for Crohn's disease. He was going through all the technical details of that. It's not a blood test. No, and that's what Durianrider described, was just having a drop of blood put on a slide for whether or not you got Crohn's disease, and that doesn't work that way at all. Well, let's not get into details. Yeah. But I remember that guy talked to me with the so yeah, you know, that's your, and so therefore Joe Best is going to blame the victim here and say, well, Durianrider was baited. Look, I think if you make the claim that you've cured an incurable disease, something serious like Crohn's disease, I don't think my criticism on that is disproportionate or unreasonable. And, you know.
Yeah, you know, this isn't the first time that I've heard somebody say this, because when I've talked to my dad about this, because he's like, you know, why did he get online in the first place and criticize this person who was clearly a psychopath?
Wow,
you know, like,
that's such a funny irony. Go on.
Yeah. And I was like, well, I think it's pretty brave that he did. And I think that he probably did help people who were under Durianrider's spell. Maybe your videos did help some people.
Sure.
And yeah, I mean, you incurred a lot of
those
horrible things since then because of how you had made videos criticizing him. But I think it's something brave. You know, I respect that you did that.
Well,
I'm happy that you did.
Look, it's a lot easier to be a gracious loser than a gracious winner. One of the reasons why I take the attitude I do towards this is just that I'm humble about the fact that my side won. You know, I said this recently to Norwegian, where I was saying to him, look, you know, you got to be careful what you say about Durianrider. I'm not comfortable with calling Durianrider a narcissist. I'm really not. I'm not comfortable with making that allegation against him. I basically don't think we should be defaming him that way. If you guys don't remember, I stood up and defended Durianrider when Vegan Cheetah started defaming him. I said, no, I didn't start my case so that people would stop defaming me and defame other people instead, defame Durianrider. I want nobody to be defaming anyone. Yeah. And that was when Cheetah started hating me. I made one video saying, no, you cannot say that this man has HIV/AIDS, which Cheetah said back then. He made a video that was deleted where he claimed that Durianrider had HIV/AIDS. And then he stuck with that. He made a video where he didn't use the person's name, but he was looking at the guy's blood test and insinuating this person. I said, none of this is acceptable. He made another video suggesting Durianrider was having sex with somebody. I'm just not going to say who to be polite. And on all those issues, I stood up. I said to Cheetah publicly and privately, no. The point was not to just stop defaming me. You also can't defame Durianrider. We have to have one moral standard, a minimum moral standard that applies to everyone. And again, I'm duly humble about the fact that some people think I crossed the line and think my videos are immoral. But like, if you think it's way over the line for me to say, as I've said, that Nina and Randa, when they go to an audition in LA, are not the best looking girls in the room, no one's going to gasp in amazement when they show up at an audition in Los Angeles. If you think that's so outrageous, I understand that. Like, maybe my own grandmother would feel that way. You know what I mean? Actually, not true of either of my grandmothers. But anyway, hypothetically, one of my grandmothers might have felt that way. But if you're someone who's a fan of Durianrider, who consumes his channel, the level of vitriol, slander, personal insult, and just needless criticism of people, just crappy personal criticism, him laying into Tana Mongeau, like why? It's just crappy, for needless, vicious criticism of people. And then you look at my channel and you think I'm way over the line. That's what doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
But for sure, if my channel is over the line for you, don't watch it. Simple as that.
Yeah. And another thing, think of your behavior when Durianrider asked you to make an apology video for Freely.
Right.
And you did.
Right.
But he didn't accept that apology. He didn't change his behavior after that.
Yeah. I could totally forgot about that. Good point. Yeah.
You didn't make a video calling him a psychopath. You still never sunk to this level that
true.
Joe Best is sinking to.
That's true. It's an interesting point. That is true.
Anyway.
I made an apology video to Durianrider and Freely just because Durianrider asked me. And, it was when I was going through the screenshots of what he said to me. Everything he said to me was either a threat or an insult or a lie, except this one thing. I said the one genuine thing in it was that he asked me to apologize to Freely because he claimed that what I'd said about her hurt her feelings. Freely has never said that, by the way. It's very easy for Freely. We're within 6 degrees of separation. We have friends in common, Freely and I. But I said, okay, this is a man asking me to apologize to his girlfriend because he said it hurt her feelings. I'm going to do it. I'm going to take that as a positive opportunity. And for him, that would have been a great out. That would have been an opportunity to move the controversy in another direction and do something more positive. Thing he didn't take it. That is true. Yeah.
Yeah, and think of how this video might make me feel. My boyfriend is not a psychopath, yet there are people online saying that he's a psychopath. Before we were even together, I wanted to defend him because all these things seemed ridiculous, ludicrous.
Yeah.
Are you going to apologize to me for hurting my feelings, Joe Best? Are you going to apologize to Eisel for calling him a psychopath? And would Eisel be in the wrong if he did not accept your apology then?
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, okay.
But it is very clear that the person who is coming up in his shadow is also someone to be warned of, and not just because he's going after me. He's done that many times.
Sorry, I know we've only got one sentence there, but look. One, I'm not coming up on his shadow. My channel has not gotten any bigger. Basically, since before the controversy with Durianrider, my channel has stayed the same size. I have approximately the same number of regular viewers. And that's probably because the kind of people who watch my channel don't want to watch 5 videos a week. I have a lot of regular viewers who've been with me for years. I think they put on YouTube once a month. They're people with real jobs. You know what I mean? They're not the kind of stereotype YouTube comment section troll or teenager or whatever. They don't do that kind of thing. That's not my audience. I got a lot of fully grown adults who watch this channel, and they watch it once a week or once a month, and that's about it. But my audience has stayed the same size. But this is before I started to say, it's easier to be a gracious loser than a gracious winner. It's easier to be kind of, humble or, act appropriately. We collectively have destroyed Durianrider's life. We've destroyed his channel. His channel has collapsed. And I think some degree of kind of, humility is in order about that. And even I've made videos saying, look, I feel bad for Durianrider. Yeah. It's really sad. It's really, this is the only thing he had in his life. He doesn't have any other job. He doesn't have any other career. He doesn't have anything else going on. And we've destroyed it. Now, I didn't destroy it for no reason. I didn't destroy it out of mean-spirited vindictiveness, whereas a lot of what he does against me and other people is just mean-spirited vindictiveness. But still, again, unlike Joe Best, who's perpetually presenting himself as the victim, I don't see myself as the victim. I think we have to talk about this as winners, not whiners, and say, look, we have changed the face of vegan YouTube. Me and a bunch of other people, including Vegan Gains and Carrie McCarpet, and even Unnatural Vegan, shout out to Unnatural Vegan, put our foot down and said, no, here is the line, this far and no further. And it ended Durianrider's career. It destroyed his credibility. It destroyed his festival in Thailand. It has destroyed his life. Durianrider has been sitting there weeping alone with his girlfriend and his last 2 supporters. When they go out to lunch, they film it. They're posting photos and videos of themselves. There's 4 or 5 people out to lunch, right? And the festival of people who hate Durianrider, which includes some of his ex-girlfriends, as you know, that has more than 15 people at it. It's not a huge crowd, but you see the photos of them having lunch. So this was supposed to be a festival with 100 people attending, riding up the mountain to hear Durianrider's philosophy of life and so on. Obviously, he's destroyed his own career to a very large extent. Obviously, his own ridiculous behavior is responsible for that. But I think you have to see it in that framework. I'm not coming up in Durianrider's channel. Durianrider Shadow, sorry, but my channel isn't growing. It hasn't grown, and for the most part, I have the same regular viewers that I had before any of this started. And I remember I tracked it. Even when Vegan Gains gave me the shout out supporting me on the video, I don't think I gained even one subscriber from that, because the type of people who are fans of Vegan Gains are not fans of my content. No complaint. That's it. It's just different types of people want this stuff. If I have 2,000 people who care about my channel, I'm happy. I think that's wonderful. It's great, because I know all kinds of people with PhDs, university professors and researchers, and they can't get 2,000 people to show up to their lecture. They can't get 2,000 people to read their article if it's a PDF online. They couldn't get 200 people to watch a YouTube video of them talking about the things they're passionate about and do research about in their lives. Yeah. So I'm duly humble about that. I don't expect my channel to grow.
And it's not like now you're going to be in charge of the Thai Fruit Festival. Right. It's not like you're coming up in his, you're taking over his place or something.
And who is? The whole point, Joe Best himself, he very much is trying to come up into emerge. He is trying to take over the festival. He is trying to take over a leadership role in Chiang Mai, Thailand, in exactly that scene. So if anyone's trying to come up off of this tragedy, Joe, it's you and not me. I don't want to play that role. That kind of leadership role, and so I do not want to play, especially not in terms of the permanent vacation, weight loss, ride a bike side of veganism. No, man, this is not my aspiration and not my interest at all.
Because it's very clear that he exhibits extremely similar power-hungry traits as Name Withheld. The big difference is...
Okay, what have I done in the last 3 years of my life? Okay, and we can contrast this to the advice I gave Joe Best himself. I moved from Taiwan to Canada. I enrolled in a second BA. I already have a BA. My first BA, honors BA, is in political science. I had the humility to say, well, there are no good master's degree options for me. There are no good PhD options for me. I'm going to go back to school and get a second BA. And of course, a lot of thought went into that, a lot of agonizing, right? It's a hard decision to make. And I was sitting in class. I mean, in Canada, you get a rate, but I was in class with people aged 18 to 25 primarily. You always have a few mature students in every class. This is the situation. I learned Chinese for a little less than 1 year. I had to stop learning Chinese and learn Japanese. I got myself a very peculiar job as a university professor in China. In what with the basic, and in my spare time, I come on YouTube and talk about stuff. How is this in any way comparable to what Durianrider's done or what he's claiming about my life and my aspirations and so on here? There's no resemblance between the reality of my life, what I'm doing and what I'm aspiring to do, and what he's charging me with here. There are many people on YouTube who wanted to be the next Freely. And I don't even really shame them for that. They saw a successful model and they wanted to be the next Freely. And I think there were people who saw what Durianrider did and directly imitated him and wanted to be the next Durianrider. There is no sense in my life, professional or personal, whatever, in which I've been trying to be the next Durianrider. None. But we talk about this stuff all the time. We have all kinds of videos talking about career and education. And we have all kinds of videos talking about activism and what kind of political role I do want to play in veganism. And even the kind of the politics that are built into something like me writing that children's storybook, right? Yeah. So, in what way is that comparable? So Durianrider's way to the top was slander and defamation and celebrity call-out videos.
Yeah.
So that's what you think. Do I use any of the same methods you use? I'm writing a children's storybook. I study foreign languages. I do history and politics of Asia, of Canada, whatever. There is nothing in common in our approach. And in terms of our objectives, I've said very clearly, I want to be involved in public education and outreach. I want to imitate the success of Mothers Against Drunk Driving. I want to have civil society organizations. I have my manifesto video. My whole political approach has nothing in common with Durianrider. I also am not giving weight loss advice, unlike Joe Best, who is hardly in a position to give weight loss advice.
The big difference is, and I don't want to sound like I'm going soft on anybody, at least Name Withheld has got a positive contribution. What we've all said, all of us that have fallen out with him, is you do bring good stuff, but you spoil it by doing so much bad stuff when people don't agree with you. That is it. My issue with that man was that the whole cancer girl thing, when he asked, is she really dead? I saw that and I thought, I cannot be this man's friend. It's not going in the same direction of life that I'm heading in. So
just laughable that I can't even laugh. I don't know.
Well,
that you have no positive contribution
right
in your channel.
So in terms of when you first got interested in my YouTube channel, like what was the positive content you responded to? Just ask for you as an example.
Yeah,
sitting here.
yeah. Well, the first video that I saw was passion and protest won't save the planet.
Oh, right.
And that to me was really interesting. I didn't hear anybody else on YouTube talking about this, talking about what is effective activism, how can we improve activism, how can we make it so that there are more vegan people in the world. That is, I think, the number one thing that vegans want: more vegan people, more people that are interested in ecology, more people that care about animals, more people that want us to be able to survive as a human race on our planet. And your channel was discussing so many interesting things, so many valuable things that nobody else said, or, you know, maybe some topics other people had commented on, but like, you know, you have like almost 600 videos talking about vegan politics, talking about the future of the movement, talking about, I mean, your life too. I mean, your life is just interesting, but like all kinds of different topics that I don't think anybody else, I don't know, to me, maybe I'm biased, you know, I'm biased because I'm in love with you, but like, you know, you've made a really positive contribution to veganism. You've done book reviews, you know,
well, okay, this came up in the conversation.
You've written a children's book.
This came up in the conversation with Josh, aka Vegan Revolution, right? Mm-hmm. But that was one of the only parts where there was really communication. He had nothing to say back. He didn't disagree with me. He said that I was a divisive and negative figure in the movement. And my response was, I said, well, okay, let's talk about in what sense I'm divisive. So the stuff I say about what is effective activism and protest, the stuff I say about vivisection or domestication of animals, so castrating dogs, those kinds of issues, is that if you regard those as divisive issues to debate or discuss, I think they're really worthwhile and meaningful.
Yeah, and
I don't think they're divisive in a meaningless or counterproductive or negative sense.
Yeah, it's meaningful because it will invite vegans to discuss these matters and to come together and talk about these issues.
Movement becomes stronger and more clearly focused, and we disambiguate things that are ambiguous and confusing within the movement. Right. But he didn't object. He didn't disagree. I mean, he responded to that. He was basically like, right, that's true. So, I mean, obviously that was an incredibly negative interview overall, incredibly hostile. But in response to that, he had nothing hostile or negative to say. He just responded to that by saying, yeah, that's right. He agreed, and he thought that was a positive contribution to the movement. So that's one side of it. And the other side of it is, this was mostly on Twitter, but also by email. When somebody like Vegan Foot Soldier made the claim there was absolutely no positive content on my channel, I wrote back to him giving examples. Well, there are counterexamples. Like I have a playlist for book reviews. Those 10 videos about book reviews. I don't think there's anything that positive on all of Joe Best's channel. There's definitely not anything that positive on all of Durianrider's channel. I mean, this claim that Durianrider's done something so positive. Those, you know, it's true. You know, again, to be self-critical, you can see videos where I just say Gary Francione is an idiot, you know, when I don't really go into depth. I also have a video that's 1 hour and 20 minutes long. You'll see it in that playlist for book reviews, where I say a lot of positive things about Gary Francione in a very balanced way. We talk about the legacy of his work, what's good and what's bad in his approach, what's good and what's bad in his book. You know, we're talking about a particular book, but also his legacy and his influence in the movement in a very responsible, measured way. So, you know, both are true of my channel. But if that's not positive content, what is? Yeah. Like, I can really ask the question. So my playlist, even if that's the only positive content on my channel, which it isn't, but there's another playlist, you know, the wildlife management approach to veganism, talks about the importance of wild animals and the role of domesticated animals and how we philosophize about veganism, how we think of this political movement. All the stuff on effective activism, so many videos, you know, street protests versus lobbying government, public outreach and education, all that stuff. So if this is not a positive contribution, what is? And you will search in vain for anything that positive in Durianrider's channel. You will search in vain for anything that positive in Joe Best's whole record. So yeah, I mean, people like you got interested in my channel because of, I would say, substantive content. I mean, positive and negative are kind of meaningless here, but this is substantive content really showing concern and interest for and in the next 10 years of the vegan movement and what I want to do in it. And saying that I'm a psychopath and I'm an even worse psychopath than Durianrider, that is Joe Best's response to that contribution. And I make the contribution I can. Durianrider has no job. Durianrider has no kids. I have a full-time job and a 4-year-old daughter. And I'm enrolled in university, and I've been enrolled in language classes. You know, at the moment I'm not, but, you know, I was for my first 7 months in China and so on. I have other responsibilities in life. Sometimes people say to me that they think I'm not doing enough. And I say back, well, right now I'm doing the best I can. We're about to fly to France and take care of my daughter for 15 days.
Yeah.
I have other responsibilities. So I do what I can for veganism. And that's why I talk about something like the illustrating the children's storybook. Wrote this children's storybook, translated it, getting it illustrated. That's something positive I can do. I can't form a big organization like PETA out of thin air. I don't have the money. I don't have the time. I don't have any means to do that. So the type of activism I can engage in, I think, is worth talking about. And I get all kinds of email back from other people too talking about this. If I just get email from someone saying they have a busy job, they're an architect or something, and they're looking for the ways in which they can make a positive contribution to the movement within their limitations. So yeah. And Joe Best, why don't you ask yourself what you can do for the movement? Because this ain't it, homeboy. This ain't it.
Yeah, just the two vegan friends that I do have, I really encourage them to watch your channel, because I don't know, you've said though that people have written into you saying that your content made them go vegan.
Yeah, sure.
So yeah, that is
sure.
You've made people go vegan. Like, I wouldn't say you're an introductory vegan channel.
No,
but once
it's not
you are a
that's
vegan,
right.
you want to talk about these things. Like, it doesn't just go away. You don't just become vegan and then you're like, oh, okay, like there's nothing to talk about. Like, no, like this is something that's I'm going to be interested in talking about for the rest of my life. Like, this is something that had a huge impact on my worldview, what I wanted to do with my life, like
how you see your own relatives and friends, how you get along with your parents. That stuff,
Yeah.
I regard that as positive content. Even again, to shout out that one video, my video with Zaria, over an hour long, and she talks about how her relationship with her parents changed when she became vegan. I talked about my relationship with my parents changed when I became vegan. Talk about going to farms and seeing animals getting slaughtered. There's a lot of that kind of positive content.
Yeah.
And people like Vegan Foot Soldier and Joe Best and even Norvegan, they want to dismiss that and call me a narcissist and a psychopath.
Like, I'm not going to recommend Foot Soldier to my vegan friends, because
good point, good contrast. What are they going to learn from it?
Yeah.
How is it going to positively impact their lives? Yeah. And in terms of this question, because it's often given as a justification for Durianrider, well, people have converted to veganism because of, well, people have converted to veganism because of me too. I can really ask, well, what kind of human being becomes vegan because of Durianrider?
Yeah.
And then what are they going to do positively for the movement in the future if that's their main interest, if that's their guiding influence? You know, is that kind of thing,
if the influence, then I don't really have a lot of
lean. If this is what the emphasis is all about,
I don't have a lot of confidence that they'll be vegan forever if that's why why they became vegan, because the health argument, the to look beautiful and thin and young, like that isn't something that's going to last. What is going to last is a lot of the influence that your channel has.
They maybe they do stay vegan, but they stay vegan on Durianrider's program, which is drop out of school, hate your parents, get a vasectomy, never have kids, go on permanent vacation, live by your own rules, live for your own personal short-term happiness. There are a lot of layers to that message, and there are people who've changed their lives because of that message. I don't think they're going to have a positive impact on veganism. The claim was that by glamorizing veganism, by making it seem glamorous, they would spread veganism. I don't think Durianrider sitting on his kitchen floor ranting about how much he hates psychiatrists and how all medical doctors are scam artists. I don't think that glamorizes veganism. I think that discredits veganism.
Yeah,
I think it does a lot of harm to the perception of veganism, but that is the excuse or justification for it. Yeah. And look, the people who convert to veganism because of my channel, which I have had emails from those people. So if there's an excuse for Durianrider, it's an excuse for me. I think those are people who really probably will have a positive impact. Those are people of a more intellectual character. I showed you recently, about a week ago, I got one message from them. They wrote to me, they're basically while they're converting to veganism. And they said, look, I've been considering converting to veganism. I was looking for in-depth, meaningful discussion of these problems I have with veganism. And they said, yours is the only channel that addressed or dealt with any of this stuff. And they wrote to me saying they really appreciate my contribution. So that's out there. And I don't care. Maybe it's only 100 people ever for my channel, whereas it's 1,000 people for Durianrider. It's not millions of people for Durianrider. Maybe it's 5,000 people for Durianrider. But sure, those 100 people could have a really meaningful long-term impact because they're the people who care about those issues and think about the political consequences of their actions. They're not a bunch of teenagers. It's teenagers, but it's all people cheering for, the defamation Olympics. Someone like Durianrider or someone like Vegan Cheetah clowning on the internet. And, clowning in a way that really harms people in terms of their personal lives, their sex lives, their professional lives. Yeah. How am I supposed to apply for a job with this kind of stuff about me on the internet? It really impacts my life.
Yeah. And another positive thing, I can share your videos that aren't even about veganism. I've sent a few videos to my brother, one being like the one about not getting offended. Like,
Oh, right,
why
right,
it's
right.
pointless to get offended.
Right.
Because he had made some comment to me how quick people are to get offended.
The other day, a couple days ago, you shared my video about caffeine. That's not a big
yeah,
caffeine.
caffeine.
Yeah.
So you make videos about all kinds of different topics that
Right.
can be shared, and I feel comfortable sharing your videos because they are informed, they are, respectful. They're not like content that Durianrider puts out. So,
Right.
Anyway,
but it seems to be a really easy way to slander someone, to just say their channel has absolutely no content. I have more than 500 videos.
Right.
And I can send you, as I did with Foot Soldier, I can send you counterexamples, And it's so easy for him to claim, I don't accept criticism. I can send videos showing, hey, here I am responding to criticism in a really meaningful way. Calling me a psychopath is not really criticism, but here I am now responding to it too, right? So taking the time out of my day. I mean, we're treating this fairly seriously, even though it's impossible to treat.
And I started challenging his nutritional advice. He went after me like a madman, relentless. And that's when I realized I definitely cannot be associated with this man.
Well, how do you think I feel, Joe? Like, why is there no capacity for sympathy or empathy there? You feel so sorry for yourself. You're such a victim that Durianrider went after you. Gee, can you think of anyone else who's had a similar experience and might endure similar feelings? I mean, evidently I am. I am tougher than Joe Best, despite his background in the street gangs of London. Hanging out with really tough psychopaths in the street gangs of London, Joe. That's your claim. But I'm tougher than you, homeboy. I dealt with a lot more than you. And you could have reached out to me positively at any point during that period, and you didn't. You didn't stand up and do the right thing when it would have taken guts, when it would have taken courage, or when it would have just taken some human empathy, some compassion, some sympathy. You didn't do that at all. You piled on. You rode with the bandwagon when it was fashionable to say that I was a scam artist and that my court case was fake. You rode with that, and now you're riding with the other bandwagon. You're a piece of shit either way, man.
The problem with this fella here, à-bas-le-ciel, Mazard, is that he doesn't contribute anything positive anyway. There's no positive content that comes out of there because it's all designed to undermine anybody whom he criticizes. He claims that what he's doing is that he's like he says, every movement needs a critic. But what he really saying is every movement needs a leader who insults them, and that's me. But the glaring red flag to me is...
Okay, so Joe Vegan, we've already talked about this, but he hasn't watched any of these videos, and he is, I think, too stupid. Sorry, Joe Best. I'm saying Joe Vegan by accident there. Okay, so my critique of Zoopolis. This is a book written by a Canadian university professor with a PhD who is influential within animal rights, at least at the academic level. That book propounds the notion that rats should have civil rights. Rats in cities should have civil rights. It propounds a bunch of really crazy... Will Tuttle, again, in my book review of him, contains insane supernatural notions. But Zoopolis is a good example. You can check the book reviews playlist on my channel. Do you actually think there's no significance to my sitting down and making a video warning people? Most of whom have not read that book and will never read that book. And most of whom just assume these are respectable sources. Most people I've talked to, they just assumed Will Tuttle was a really respectable representative of veganism because, I don't know, he wears a nice suit, he's published a book, and he travels the world giving lectures on veganism. And that video is really warning you, wait, there's something important here you don't know that's ethically wrong and morally wrong and intellectually wrong. Same with Gary Yourofsky. So many people sent me emails thanking me because they said they had no idea what Gary Yourofsky's position on violence was. And I put together a video where I'm quoting him, pointing out, and I explained, look, this is something I absolutely can't compromise with. This is morally wrong, and it's politically wrong. It's tactically and strategically wrong. No, Gary Yourofsky, we really have to recognize what his position on violence is. And Will Kimlicka is the name of the professor who wrote Zoopolis. Will Kimlicka, what he's actually saying about rats and snakes, and by the way, what he says about backyard chickens laying eggs. He has this ludicrous justification, which is, in my mind, anti-vegan, of why it's okay to eat chicken eggs, why it's okay to even ride a horse or keep horses, this kind of thing, horses and cows. And that. This is justification for happy milk, which I think is really dangerous within the vegan movement. Other people wouldn't know about that without that critique, without my reading the book and doing the book review and discussing it, And...
You're not undermining the authors. You're talking about what the authors talked about
Right. Well,
and discussing it and providing a book review for somebody else. And what is Joe Best doing here?
Yeah, he's just calling me a psychopath. Right. But if I am undermining the authors, even if we accept that, even if it is negative, because it's a negative book review, right? I mean, it's a negative book review. Sure, it's not a positive book review. You can call it negative, but it's critique about something substantive that matters. If I'm undermining the authors, why? Okay, yeah, I'm undermining the idea that rats should be citizens, that rats should have civil rights, or that that's a meaningful word. Do you expect me to apologize for that? It's not the same. It's not comparable in any way to what Durianrider has done to undermine people in terms of their personal integrity, their sex lives, their private lives. Durianrider going after me in terms of my relationship with my own ex-wife, my relationship with my daughter, him making criminal allegations about me. How is that comparable in any way? Say, hey, here's an academic with a PhD, you published a book, and I'm going to criticize some of the political ideas in that book. You can call it negative. You can say I'm undermining the person. How is that comparable to Durianrider claiming I'm a sexual predator? Claiming that I'm a wife beater, which is claiming that he claimed that I was kicked out of a vegan group in Quebec because I slept with so many of the women in this group and stuff. There is no comparison whatsoever. You can use the verb undermining for both. You can use the adjective negative for both. But I mean, Joe Best, you're so far wrong on this. And I guess you can't see it yourself.
But the glaring red flag to me is, what kind of critic can't take criticism? What kind of critic has their comments turned off? It's like he stands there with a megaphone, tells you exactly what you need to think, and then puts his hands over his ears. It is absolutely preposterous.
So there's not a lot to say about this, but we just saw this video from Joe Best, and it didn't just have a lot of comments below it. You could see Joe took a lot of time to read and reply to every comment. Joe Best doesn't have a job. Joe Best doesn't have kids. Joe Best is on permanent vacation. So he can do that. I can't. I tried for a couple months. I mean, while I was a student in Kunming, I did put in my level best to interact with the audience that way and, moderate the comment section and this stuff. And, at the end of that time, okay, I'm not a student anymore. I got this job and moved to a new location and so on. I don't have the time to do that. I also don't have the interest, I really, the quality of comments you get on YouTube, most of it is not worth talking about. But Joe Best, I guess, I don't know if he considers himself retired or not. He has no job. He has a lot of time on his hand. I don't want to maintain a comment section. I've described why. I've made multiple videos talking about why there's no comment section on my channel. I do take the time to reply to people on Patreon. Those people pay $1 a month. If you write to me on Patreon, email me within the, you can privately message me within Patreon or publicly comment within Patreon. I do answer those comments, and that's part of how I use my time effectively. Right now, this weekend, I have to grade 150 exams. I have both oral exams and written exams. I'm a university professor in China, and I'm still a university student in Canada getting this second degree. Real people do real things, Joe, and different people use this medium, use YouTube in different ways.
Yeah, and I think you're really confusing critique with insult, because most of the YouTube comments would be insulting. The majority of them would not be a critique of what you say, because I remember what kind of comments you used to get.
I mean, again,
and I see the kind of comments that were left on Joe Best's video, and they're insulting to you, and they will just come into your comment section and insult you there, and you're gonna have to, just leave them up, leave up insulting comments. I mean,
What's the point? I can't justify using my time that way. Now, maybe it would be different if I was in the position Durianrider or Joe Best, or maybe if I were retired and I just had a lot of time to burn.
But even that, you have so much more potential to.
I know so much better
waste
things
your
to
time on a YouTube comment.
I agree. And I got the comment again and again. I don't know if it originates from people writing to me saying that my watch was worth $2,000. I got that so many times in the comments section, like, oh, there you are with your $2,000 watch. What? Where is this coming from? Why should I reply? This is not critique. This is not talking about political views and this kind of thing, And again, really nasty personal insinuations about my daughter and my divorce and my psychology and what have you. It's like, well, if this is what you want to do with your time, Joe, do it. But you're making it worse. You're an example of this. Yeah. Why do I got to reply to some idiot calling me a psychopath? More than 10 times in this video. It's not critique. It's just an insult, or it's just defamation. Whatever you want to say.
Preposterous. There is nothing more narcissistic than having a debating dialogue provocative channel where you don't let your audience have a say.
The funny thing is, there's an implicit compliment there that doesn't square with his other criticism of me, right? So you're saying it's an intellectual debate type of channel, but I don't. Well, that's not what you said a minute ago. And maybe you said there's absolutely no positive comment on my channel. So if there's no positive content, what you've just described is a channel with a lot of positive content, but you wish you could leave comments in the videos. Joe, if you want to leave comments on the video, pay $1 per month to join Patreon. And that's where people have comments and discussions. And many of my videos are me replying to. I've got another one that's not uploaded yet that we recorded yesterday, me replying to comments in Patreon that I get from people, and including criticism. I give that 47-minute long video, which is all me replying to a very angry, harsh critic who wrote to me on Patreon. So anyway, this it's so easy to just say this person doesn't reply to criticism. Well, Joe Best, back when I wanted to talk to you, it wasn't really criticism. I was just trying to overcome your misconceptions. You were not willing to talk to me back when you were saying that I was committing fraud, back when you were saying these terrible things, when you were backing up Durianrider's criminal allegations about me. I was willing to talk to you. I was willing to answer your criticism, and you weren't willing to. You claimed, anyway, you claimed you had dyslexia, whatever,
I can't understand why anyone would watch his videos when you can't have a say. It's like someone giving you a one-sided argument. It is just the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen.
I just say, I think there is some truth to that. But, I think that broadcasting is one-sided. I think that's literally true. With the exception of when I do a podcast talking back and forth with somebody. Like I had, who criticized me, Dumb Vegan. Do you remember that? I did that with Dumb Vegan, and Dumb Vegan said that he didn't believe certain things was right. Totally relaxed, smiling, happy way, responded to his criticism, so on. Ain't no thing, but that's, I do dialogues, I do podcasts, I do discussions with people. But with that aside, don't kid yourself. Broadcasting is a one-way format. If you're watching my video, basically, I talk and you listen. There's no overcoming that. And in terms of what fits into my life, I can take the time to record this video, which I don't even know how long. This is gonna be a 20-minute long video or something, and then I can upload that, and then I can go work out and grade papers. Today, as mentioned, I'm gonna be grading exams. I can't sit and mine the comment section. I can't sit and do an open chat forum, which exists on the internet. That's not really what YouTube is, but you can do Reddit or something where you really have an ongoing discussion with the person. I can't take the time to do that. And also in my experience with vegans like Joe Best, that's really not rewarded. That lowers the intellectual caliber compared to my playlist of book reviews. I'd rather take that time and do a book review and do something really substantive for the future of the vegan movement and for people to engage with. But sure, if anyone else wanted to reply to those book reviews or anything I say in terms of political content, great. And get the ball rolling.
You can reach you. Somebody can reach you through Patreon. And the Patreon is like a $1 filter to have.
Right.
It's an easy filter for you to have to separate, intelligent responses versus just insulting responses.
Sure.
I think it's very rational, and I think it's a really good thing that you have.
It's basically just a barrier that keeps the trolls out, whatever. But I also do live streaming where anyone can talk to me. I do, I'm not hard to reach. One of the other criticisms was that I didn't talk to people who disagreed with me in Chiang Mai. It's completely untrue. On both trips to Chiang Mai, I met up with people who hated me when they were willing to meet with me or they were interested in talking to me. I've been open to talking to, so-called enemies, most of whom, as soon as they meet me, they confess that they know I'm in the right and that Durianrider's been lying and stuff, I was willing to meet with and talk with even people like Vegan Ava. So I've always had the door open that way. And there's been dialogue with a lot of people who have, very contrasting political views to mine on this channel. I mentioned again, but the Mormon woman, American Unicorn, she's a religious conservative Mormon, obviously a lot more right-wing, than I am or anyone I know is. And, I've been open to that stuff, I know one conservative vegan who I had on live stream, who's like more of a Republican kind of guy. I had him on live stream. He's not been on the YouTube channel yet. I'm sure he will be in the future. Vegan Dreams is his screen name. But, I'm really open to that stuff, and I discuss that a lot in my videos. So fundamentally, this is a one-way medium, and I only have enough time to really kind of do this stuff one way. But in the past, when I tried that stuff, when I tried using Reddit or using more of an open back and forth conversation, it was not a worthwhile use of my time.
Yeah, and I also kind of see you as a professor. So, if you give a lecture with some of this
if you give a lecture,
sure. You don't have. The students don't stay after and all leave comments.
That's true. And some of this stuff, like I remember I did a video that was about the essay I'd written on the history of Russia, China, Japan, this massacre that happened in 1920. It's an instance of political mass murder and communist revolution. And I just did a video talking about that. What do you think? Like, you think YouTube comments is how you're going to get meaningful feedback from some of that? Sure. I mean, some of the videos, it's one-sided. Another video that got a really positive reception, the video I did called Why I Have No Future, or maybe it's Why I Don't Have a Future. Search for the word future and you'll get it. But it's a video talking about my own life, talking about my career, talking about my education, very self-critical, totally incompatible with the thesis that I have narcissistic personality disorder. A narcissist could not make that video. There's a lot of videos self-critical in this way. And, I'm happy to talk more about my life with people. Somebody like Maud Vegan, somebody knows me, but she does talk to me about, my life and career choices and education and stuff. But that's not a case where, like, the meaningful feedback you're going to get are going to be, 2 sentences on YouTube. On the contrary, what you're going to get, and I got anti-Semitic comments and insulting comments about my mom and my divorce and my daughter. That's a lot of what you get, and my $2,000 watch, this kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, we all make choices. This is how I choose to use YouTube. But I mean, I guess what people are used to is what Wenji did. And you guys don't remember Wenji. Wenji would enter videos by saying, "I love you guys.
I miss you guys so much."
Yeah, this is what people expect on YouTube. This really high level of flattery and praise all the time coming from the YouTuber. And that's not who I am. I'm keeping it real. I'm gonna give it to you raw. And I'm not the only guy who does. I think a guy like Joey Carbstrong. Joey Carbstrong basically only does 2 things on his channel now. I mean, his channel's changed a lot in a year because he stopped believing in Durianrider. But Joey Carbstrong, he does street protests, and street activism, outreach, education, talking to people on the street. And he does real talk about his life, where he talks about, he's got a prison record and the cops check up on him and what he's doing in his life. And he moved back in with his mom. He talks about real life. Those are 2 things I respect. One is real activism. The other is keeping it real and talking about your life in a down-to-earth manner. And, I mean, my channel is more in that category. I'm not selling you a dream, and I'm not telling you that I love you when I don't even know who you are, and I'm not telling you I miss you when I haven't made a video in 2 weeks because I've been busy or something. Some of us want to keep it real. Mm-hmm. And sure, for me, having the comment section off is part of that. But anybody can get there, including Joe Best. Joe Best, of all people, has had tons of email correspondence with me in the last 2.5 years. So anyway, I mean, look. It's a pose. It's a way to discredit somebody. That's all this video does, is try to discredit me and claim I'm a psychopath, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, and you've told me that it's depressing that you don't have enough intelligent responses, that you don't have people who are actually giving you valid critique. You want that. You want to be critiqued. You want, like, your ideas to be discussed. You want...
Sure. Keeping it all the way real, that's why the book reviews stopped. Because the book reviews, there was no snowball effect. There wasn't even one person who made a response video coming back to it and replying, what have you. And, by contrast, some stupid controversy involving vegan cheetah or something, it will in that way have people responding to it and discussing it from different angles. Or even, sometimes I did that. I did the video about hiring a nanny, hiring a babysitter, And that was me responding to a controversy on someone else's channel, and I think I provided intelligent discussion, but whatever, you make up your own mind. It's a short, informal video. So no, there was no intelligent debate or discussion on even one other channel, in response to those book reviews I did. I mean, the only exception is Maud Vegan herself, and her response is on my channel. It's not on her channel. I'm not complaining, but she came on my channel. We did a further discussion of a book I read and responded to. Mm-hmm. But it was like, well, if there's just no other intellectual weight out there in veganism to respond to this stuff, I'm not going to put my time into doing these book reviews. And we'll see. Maybe when I get back to Canada, when I have access to a library, which I don't here in China. Maybe I'll change my mind. I'll try to do book reviews again, test the waters, and see how that is. But yeah, sure, I wish I had contemporaries. I wish I had colleagues. I wish I had critics dealing with the political and intellectual content on my channel, whether that's about politics of Asia or politics of Canada or politics of veganism. And I don't. What I have is Joe Best saying that I'm a psychopath. Sure.
Right. Yeah, in your video, Why I Don't Have a Future, you talk about that. You don't have anybody who would, there's one person who knows Dahong Dai.
Yes.
And,
yeah.
You reached out to him to study with him.
Right.
Just no response.
Lackluster
response.
I still have email with that guy. He does respond. But yeah. But anyway, that video gets into all the details of that. My relationship with other scholars. And, for me, I have this contrast. My experience with veganism, my experience with ecology, a Green Party, formal ecological politics, my experience with veganism, my experience with Buddhism, And yeah, I mean, long story short, I am Canadian. I am very disappointed with the intellectual caliber of my fellow Canadians this generation. I can even contrast veganism and my experience with First Nations. So that's Native people of Canada, the Cree, the Ojibwe, the Dene, indigenous groups, people who lived in Canada before white people got there, and the politics of their education and languages, threats of their languages. I was involved in those politics also. I can compare, what's going on intellectually in these different fields. But sure, I mean, I didn't come on YouTube to be alone. I came on YouTube to engage with other people and engage with other people about these issues and debate and discuss this, and ultimately instigate new organizations, new institutions, new foundations, for which my usual comparison is Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Civil society organizations, real political organizations, not just screaming at strangers on the street, and lobbying government and getting involved in public education and lobbying the school board, trying to get rid of the idea that eggs are healthy or milk is healthy from what children are taught in schools. Those are the kind of issues I want to engage in, and writing a children's storybook, all this other positive stuff. Those were my aspirations. So I didn't come on YouTube to be alone. Yeah. And yes, being an intellectual on YouTube is lonely and is mostly repaid with this kind of response from Joe Best, like calling you a psychopath, which may indeed make it harder for me to get a job one day. Having stuff on the internet saying you're a psychopath and saying you're a predator, it's not real good for you that way. And I think it scares other intellectuals away from it. They don't want to do the same thing I've done because they will have the same results.
I have two other comments about the no comment section. One good thing that I think the comment section being turned off allows is to it looks more respectable. If I share a video with somebody, they may scroll down and just see that there's no comments. But if there were comments, it probably would just kind of lessen the quality of it.
I've had that experience. I've seen a lot of times. Many times people sent me email responding to a video, and they even said in the email, well, I only watched 2 minutes of the video, but I saw in the comment section that you say this, so therefore I'm writing to you now attacking you. So a lot of times people prejudge the video based on what it says in a comment section. Of course, that can happen also with other people like Joe Best bad-mouthing me now on his channel. But that definitely avoids that. And I've seen that because I've had periods of time on my channel where the comments were enabled and open to everyone. I've had periods when they were open, but they were being censored. And I've had periods where there's no comments. And definitely my channel works the best when there were no comments, because then people will at least watch the whole 6 minutes of the video.
And allow themselves to make up their own mind rather than looking at other people's comments.
Right. Anyway. Okay, cool. You said you had 2 comments. Those
were the 2. It makes it more respectable and also allows people to make up their own minds.
Right.
And I can't imagine why you would watch it. So my strategy, and this is what they advise in narcissistic, psychopathic circles, is you must cease contact. Now, if you notice on the screenshot, it says not interested. I have not watched this video.
Then why are you making a video in response?
So look, guys, I have made other videos talking about narcissistic personality disorder, NPD. This is narcissism in the strict psychological and medical sense. Just going to say this real briefly. I've met 2 people I'm very confident had NPD. I've met other people where I suspected because of that experience, those 2 people. Only one of those 2 people admitted to me that he had been diagnosed with NPD, because most people with NPD will not admit to you they have a diagnosis, and even then, it's quite a rare diagnosis. It's not that common to get diagnosed, partly because there's no treatment anyway. It's not, they can't help you that much with it, psychiatric establishment. But anyway, be that as it may, it's like NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, is a behavioral disorder. It specifically is a disorder of social behavior, all right? It's totally possible to meet someone who has bulimia and talk to them and not notice and not suspect they have bulimia, because the nature of the disorder of bulimia is more private, is more separated from social interactions like conversations and debates. It probably happens in the bathroom and in the kitchen, and you have a coworker who has bulimia and you're not even aware, all right? NPD is not like that. Narcissistic personality disorder, even if you don't know what the disorder is, if you meet and talk to somebody who really has it, like even if I just stick with the one example of the guy I knew who was formally diagnosed, well, there are 2 people who I really feel confident, who I knew over a long period of time who have the disorder. Their behavior is very, very strange. It is very abnormal. All right. And this is something people want to overlook. They just want to use this as an insult. This is a really serious disorder, but it's specifically a social behavior disorder. It's a disorder of how they interact with other people. So it's really not the case that you can meet someone with NPD. If you meet someone with NPD and you know nothing about NPD, you'd walk away from that interaction thinking, there's something really wrong with that guy. And I'm not saying that with any hate in my heart to the people who struggle with NPD. It's a real disorder. Currently, most people assume you're born with it, that it's innate, that it's not, acquired through trauma or something like that. It's not like post-traumatic stress disorder. Most people assume it is innate. We don't know yet. It's really the level of science in the field is still pretty sketchy, still at a pretty preliminary stage. But this idea that someone like me, if you know anything about NPD, that one video I made, why I don't have a future. The other video I made, the 47-minute video responding to criticism from a viewer. People with NPD can't do that. They can't do it in the way I do. For people with NPD, I mean, the one guy I knew who was diagnosed with it, the hardest thing in the world, he gave me basically the plants suffer too argument, that plants want to live, that you're hurting a plant when you kill it argument. And I responded to him very briefly in a very friendly way. And he was completely incapable of replying at all. He couldn't admit he was wrong. He couldn't joke about it. He couldn't say, yeah, I guess that's another perspective on it. Interacting with people who really have NPD is not like interacting with a normal person. And in some ways, they are normal people. I think one reason why they can be successful in society is when they sit alone at their computer. They can hold down a job. They can be successful financially. There are a lot of jobs they can be good at. But specifically, something like an informal conversation is really, really hard for people with NPD. And I just say, because I've been getting email lately from some of my number one fans claiming that I have narcissism and NPD. And I can't take it seriously because I do know about the disease. I have done some research on the disorder. And I have known, I think, 2 people for sure who really have it. And ultimately, if you know people with the disorder, I think it's normal to feel pity for them. Because a lot of the time, they're struggling to kind of be all they can be or be as good as they can be in their way. But things that are easy for you and me are really, really hard for someone with narcissistic personality disorder. That's all I got to say about that. But anyway, this is just more slander and defamation from Joe. So
I have not watched this video. I will not be watching this video. For one, I think the thumbnail is just heinous.
But look, no point talking about it. This is also a problem with a lot of my critics. How valid would my book reviews be if I didn't read the book? Mm-hmm. And all these people, Foot Soldier and Vegan Ava and, even Norvegan, they would say, well, I haven't really watched your video, but... Or they're criticizing videos when I write back and say, oh, well, did you actually watch this video about that topic? They haven't seen it. I mean, very fundamentally, you have to read the primary source of what it is you're criticizing.
And obviously, Joe Best is just going by some other people's comments about this video. How is he basing his response to this video?
It's just slander. It's just different. I mean, look, some of the stuff I've looked at, I didn't want to. I didn't enjoy watching. When I criticized Freely, I did my due diligence, and I went and watched exactly what she said. I based my criticism on exactly what she said. In some cases, what she'd written, she had some writing on her blog. I went and did that work. When I criticized Unnatural Vegan, I went and reviewed what she actually said. Oh, yeah, I was a responsible critic of actually going through point by point and making sure it's responsible, contrasting what she said to a written source and this kind of stuff,
Yeah, just recently when you did the video about Earthling Ed, you watched quite a few videos from him.
That's right.
To get a sense of his channel.
That's right. In addition to the videos I actually quoted, because I do have some clips of him in the video, I made sure I watched a number of his other videos to have a feel for what his content is like. Yeah, I do my due diligence. And most of these people who harshly criticize me and condemn me, they don't. And they often say in this kind of self-important way, well, I haven't watched your videos, but. So, I mean, that's Foot Soldier's approach, would say, well, he hasn't watched any of my videos, but he's confident there's not any positive or substantive content on my whole channel. And then when I write back saying, well, there is, here's a link. Here's a counterexample. Or when these people say there's no example of me responding to criticism, I write back and say, oh, well, here's an example. I have over 500 videos. Quite a few of them I am responding to criticism, They have nothing to say. There's nothing that comes back. So it's a pose. And no, it's not legitimate, and I can't make any excuses for it. If you want to criticize Freely or Durianrider or me or anyone else, you got to work with primary sources. Mm-hmm. You got to criticize what I've actually said and what I've actually done. It's a very basic minimum standard, because otherwise,
it's all the signs of someone that is about the ego to parade your new girlfriend in thumbnails in bed in this way.
Okay, but look, I mean, so this I want to make a separate video talking about this idea of selfishness and the ego and stuff. All right, I'm willing to own it. Like, I'm showing a video and a photo of me being happy with my girlfriend. Does that really make me such a piece of shit? Am I such a terrible person that I don't just share what we've mentioned, the book reviews and the political decisions? I also share part of my life. Like, I'm really happy. I'm in this wonderful new relationship with my girlfriend. That I show me and my girlfriend being happy together. And I talk about what a great time we're having. Does that really make me such a terrible person?
Heinous.
Like, compared to what anybody else is doing on vegan YouTube. I don't mind. I can say, yeah, okay, you can call that ego. I have one video of me playing with my daughter, right? So is that ego? Like, I'm showing you what a great parent I am. I'm showing you me playing with my daughter with like little, colored bricks and stuff. What a piece of shit. Who would put that on YouTube? What a terrible person you are for sharing a video of you playing with your daughter. And when you get into the other stuff in my life, I'm very critical. I'm willing to talk about it. Okay, doing humanitarian work. When I did humanitarian, where you're handing out sacks of rice to starving people, I think for a lot of people that is an ego trip. I think it's worth talking about. No matter what. Well, okay, is this an ego trip? You feel morally superior to others because you've done this humanitarian work. Is there, like people say, white guilt? Is there a guilt trip involved? Whether it's Laos and Cambodia, or within Canada, First Nations, Cree and Ojibwe and Dene, trying to help those people. When people write to me, as Norvegan did recently, insulting me and claiming that I'm self-interested when I do these ostensibly good things, I'm willing to write back and say, you're right. I'm selfish. I've said it myself in the video, in the manifesto video. Yeah. I'm more ambitious than this. I'm more selfish than this. I want more. I'm not happy with what's going on in veganism. I want it to be bigger and better and more political and more effective and have real outcomes. I want it to be respected and respectable. I want us to have organizations like Mothers Against Drunk Driving that get quoted in the press and that aren't regarded as a joke. Yeah, I want more. And there's an element of that which is my ego and is my selfishness. I think to found a big successful organization like PETA, I think it takes some ego. I think guys like Gary Francione have some ego. He has a lot of ego. I think Gary Yourofsky has a lot of ego, and fine. I don't criticize him for that. Sure. There is a role of ego in this. There is literally a role of ego and selfishness in handing out food to starving people in a refugee camp. There is, and we can talk about that example. I had a Skype call with a guy who was just doing humanitarian work in Syria, and the Syrian civil war. And, we talk about that kind of stuff. There is an element to that, which I'm willing to be self-critical about. There's an element of ego. I'll even say this, because First Nations, I've mentioned this here, my decision to study those languages and get involved with their politics and everything else. There is an element of ego because fundamentally I grew up as a child not willing to accept the status quo. I lived in a wealthy country where our native people lived in poverty. I lived in a country where our native people had much worse access to education and drinking water than anyone else. I grew up in a country where when I went to a bank machine, it had English, French, and Chinese. You could choose the language for the bank machine. And it never had Cree or Ojibwe or Mohawk or any native language. Where I never saw a single no smoking sign in a native language. I lived in a country that I felt was guilty of slow motion genocide. And I said, this is not good enough for me. I refuse to be a part of this. There's a role of ego in standing up and saying, hey, there's no way I can study Cambodian. There's no way I can study Pali. There's no way I can have a teacher. I'll teach myself. I'm going to buy that airplane ticket. I'm going to go live on the Mekong River. I'm going to apply for humanitarian work. Oh, I can't get ahead in First Nations language. I'm going to get the books out of the library and start studying creative Ojibwe myself. Yes, there's a role of ego in all of those things. Mm-hmm. And I'm willing to criticize it and talk about it openly. And I'm willing to talk about the role of selfishness even in humanitarian work. I think that's actually a really deep topic. I'm willing to talk about the role of selfishness in vegan leadership. Sure. So, come at me, Joe. I'm not afraid of any of this stuff.
Yeah, and he was basing this on the thumbnail. He didn't actually watch the video. So he's saying that Aizul is parading me based off of this thumbnail. This is me being in the thumbnail.
Yeah.
It's really weird. Okay.
Yeah.
When it's not like it's an interview between the two of them, it's more like a prop. He's got the microphone ball, the girl, the bedroom, the white robe, whatever it is. It feels like it's all props to shore up an ego. I'm sure they're having a great time. She seems like a lovely girl. But the signs to me are...
Thanks, Joe.
I love, he always imagines that one, he can be the victim, and two, he can be the nice guy by just throwing in this kind of bullshit. Yeah. Throwing in she seems like a lovely girl doesn't make you a nice guy, Joe. Joe, you're a piece of shit. And you've hurt my girlfriend's feelings. What do you think? She's in love with me. You call me a psychopath publicly. You think this makes it okay to say you're sure she's a lovely girl?
You don't need to save me.
But Joe, he always thinks he's the victim, and he always thinks he's the nice guy in every scenario.
Of somebody who is completely intent on shoring up an ego. So I'm not going to watch his video. In fact, what I've discovered on YouTube, because I'm not always up to speed with it, you can click on the 3 dots next to the recommended or the posted side things and just say not interested, and they won't show up again.
So we've established that you found yourself to be...
Jump cut, masterpiece of editing. And now what we have on screen are the words unfortunate victim. And that is what Joe Best thinks of himself. And he then has a clip from somebody else's video. This is basically condemning me as being a psychopath. And we're going to skip this, I think, because we don't want to hear this. Well, does he talk again towards the end of the video? But he's advising you on how to handle me as a psychopath. With a clip, I assume it's from some psychologist or psychiatrist, but it's just from some other YouTuber. I don't know the source. Okay, so let's see if Joe Best has anything else to say, and then we can wrap this up.
What I'm advocating here is I'm switching off to both. The point of this video is vote with your view. In the same way in the world you can vote with your dollar, vote with your view.
All right, we have watched this before, so I do remember what he says in the rest. But I think we can wrap this up. And I say that to people. I said that yesterday to somebody on live stream. I said that to people on YouTube also. This is not a captive audience. I totally agree with Joe Best about this. If you don't like my content, if you don't respect my perspective, don't watch my channel. And, I wrote to an old friend the other day. I don't know if you noticed this. I said to myself in a self-deprecating way. I wrote to a friend I haven't talked to in years, trying to stay in touch with this guy. And I just said to him, just so you know, most of my web presence is pretty close to self-parody. I had the link to my YouTube channel. Some of the stuff on my channel is silly. Some of it's ridiculous. Some of it you may find offensive. I don't find it offensive. You may. I listen to rap music. I mean, what I find offensive is maybe not the same thing that you find offensive. I do find it very inconsistent that people who don't find Durianrider offensive claim that they find me offensive. There are some very strange things like that. But fine. As he says, vote with your view. Don't watch it. Very often I say this to you. I mean, the other day we talk about other vegan YouTubers. Very often I say about other YouTubers, look, I don't think this person is an idiot. I don't think they're bad. I don't think there's anything bad with them. But their content is not for me. Yeah. Most channels, there are so many channels that have a ton of followers, and they literally film themselves grocery shopping. They film themselves at the grocery store looking at packages and saying, oh, maybe I'll buy this, maybe not. Not for me. I don't think you're an idiot. I don't think you're bad for veganism. I don't have anything harsh or catty to say about you. I'm not going to slander and defame you about your sex life or your personal fitness or how fat you are or how fast you can ride a bicycle up a mountain. It's just not for me. And you can normally see from the viewers, there's maybe 10,000 people who want to see that video.
Great.
Fine.
Wonderful.
So why is it so hard to have mutual appreciation across those boundaries? I think I've mentioned this before. Joey Carbstrong, I had a positive interaction with him. This is Facebook messages. And he said to me, his channel is totally different from mine, but he could appreciate that I was presenting a different message that reaches a different audience. And we need that kind of diversity in veganism. Yeah. So why is it so hard for someone like Joe Best or Durianrider or any of these people to just appreciate I have a different message and a different style that reaches a different kind of audience? And it reached you. It brought this wonderful person in my life who I'm in love with, and we live together in the same apartment, and we're going to fly to France, and you're going to meet my daughter. She just met my mom for the first time, and it's a big part of my life. And right off the bat in this relationship, we had something. We had a lot of things in common, but you really knew who I was, the good and the bad of it. You had a real sense of my character from watching my YouTube channel. And for me, that's the ultimate reward of keeping it real, is that it brings people into your life. You can have more meaningful relationships in your life of people who meet you through YouTube, people who meet you through social media. And if I put on the facade, which I guess is what Joe Best wants me to do, and just pretend I'm cool with everybody and pretend I'm so happy, or the easiest thing to do to prevent drama like this is just write back to people and say, yeah, thanks, that would be great. We should totally do a collab sometime, and then never schedule it. Yeah. Right? Just like, maybe next month. Sorry, I'm busy. Yeah, great. I saw your video. That was great. I'll talk to you soon. And then
ghost.
And then ghost, right? I think that's what a lot of YouTubers do to save face. You can do that, But I mean, I'm keeping it real. I'm giving it to you raw about all this stuff, the successes and the failures in my life, about everything else. And there are advantages and disadvantages. One of the disadvantages is this guy calling me a psychopath. But the advantages are it brought this woman into my life. And from day one, I mean, you knew me so much better than I knew you. Yeah. And by setting out who you really are in videos, then you can find the other people who have common ground with you, whether that's for love or for friendship or for collaboration in veganism as a political movement. This is my beautiful girlfriend. I only have her on camera to show up. You got anything else to say before we call this a wrap?
Thanks for parading me around.
That's a wrap. It's a wrap, Morty.